African soil, his roots run deep. Oh, Clyde Sherretti, rise and lead, a force of change, a living creed. He wrote the tales of a people's plight, a voice of truth in the darkest night. With every page, he built a bridge to hope and strength on the highest ridge. No borders hold what love can weave.
Hello, I am Clyde Sherrati, and I will be producing a lot more videos these days to talk about some of the stuff that happen in our communities and some commentary on news and current affairs in Africa as well. Because as a diaspora, a lot of us are very much interested in what is happening back home and what is happening in the continent. And I think as much as we deal with a lot of the things that happen in the Australian context, for those of us who live in Australia, we ought to pay sufficient attention to what is happening in the continent of Africa and how we can not just contribute to the development of the countries that we come from, but also more broadly for the betterment of the whole of the continent of Africa. Today, I'll speak about Pan-Africanism because I believe it's a very important topic, and I know there's a lot of enthusiasm. There's a lot of interest in Pan-Africanism in the diaspora, especially because I think when you live in Africa and you haven't had a chance to leave the continent, perhaps when we talk about Pan-Africanism, it's just a theoretical thing because a lot of us tend not to meet many other Africans from other countries in the countries where we were born. But when you live in the diaspora, and then you get to meet a lot more Africans, and not only just meet, but also work together, like in the Australian context where I have been over the last 26 years. A lot of my work, a lot of my interest has been, dealing with issues and challenges and opportunities within African Australian communities. And I've worked with a lot of people from various countries that have never been in the African continent. And that obviously provides more opportunity to meet Africans, from many other countries. In my case, for example, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and, Liberia, and many other countries where before I came to Australia, I didn't get to meet much. I didn't get to meet many people from those countries. And I've met them in the Australian context. So that provides a lot of opportunities to not just meet, but as I said earlier, work with these people, develop projects, and contribute to the improvement of our people. Because, someone like me, I refer to my African people as my people, as much as I am a humanist and my spiritual belief leads me to add value to any human that I encounter. But I have a special place in my heart for people of Africa, and I tend to advocate, or not that I tend, really, I do advocate for all of Africans, both for my country and those from other countries as well. And I know when we talk about Pan-Africanism, it shouldn't just be words, it should be actions. And that usually should translate into collaboration, where obviously there are opportunities to collaborate in any field, whether that is in community advocacy, whether that is in business and entrepreneurship, whether that is in social impact project and all of that sort of thing. And then when we talk about advocacy, for example, I see and I know for having been in community space for quite some time that even though there is a significant degree of collaboration in what is being done, but there's also a lot of backbiting where we undermine each other, especially when we deal with the decision makers in the countries where we are. But there is one thing that recently really impressed me, and it relates to the recent peace agreement between the DRC and Rwanda. And I'm sure many of you who at least follow the news and current affairs in the African continent know that last week, I think it was last Friday, the DRC and Rwanda signed a peace agreement in Washington that was brokered by the United States, and the president of the United States, President Trump, is very much involved in this whole process, and he's facilitating all of that. And then when President Trump received the two ministers, one from Rwanda and the DRC, at the White House, it was a wonderful thing to see how he put the whole thing together. And obviously, there's a bit of a show. He's a showman, as all of you know, and he wanted to make a little bit of show out of that, because he's actually looking for a Nobel Peace Prize. That's what he's looking for, and he's, I believe, he's wanting to have a legacy in peace building, even though it's not quite working as he wants it to work. But he's doing some inroads in that. So let me just show you this one. This was basically the ceremony that took place in the White House, and I'll let you watch. You will see this journalist from Angola who was talking about the DRC, who was talking about the importance of peace in the DRC, and I believe that his intervention in that whole meeting there was very remarkable and a great example of Pan-Africanism. I'll let you watch, and then I'll come back to this in just a moment.
Big star, and she has a person who's a colleague of hers, a friend of hers, and that she has a lot of respect for, who comes from the area and knows exactly what's happening. Caroline, could I ask you to say a few words?
Yes, sir. Here we have Hariana, who is from the continent of Africa. She's been a reporter here in the United States for many years, and she has a story to share with the press, with the media, and with these two fantastic leaders who have joined you today. So, Hariana, please.
Why don't you come up here and talk so they can see?
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
a great honor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as Caroline has mentioned, President, first of all, I want to let you know that I'm the only African reporter accredited here at the White House.
Wow.
And I cover for the entire continent. So I just arrived from Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo,
Right.
yesterday. I went to see firsthand how the people is feeling and the president's message, President Felix Tshisekedi, about this upcoming peace deal. And let me tell you firsthand what I witnessed myself. I spoke with the people on the street. I spoke with youth. They know your name. They know that a president named President Trump is working hard to finally bring peace to the country. I saw hope. They have hope now for a better day in Congo. They see what you're doing as a future, better future for Congo. And I had opportunity to sit down with President Felix Tshisekedi for an interview, because I want to understand his mind, what he's thinking, his feeling about everything that your administration is doing. And he told me firsthand that for many years, many American presidents overlooked this conflict. They didn't do nothing. Even myself, I covered President Biden's administration. I pressed many times about this conflict. People are dying in Congo. This country has so much potential, but they need help because this war is destroying the country.
Right.
They never gave me any answer. And he told me, President Tshisekedi, that you have no idea, he's very thankful for what you're doing, for what your administration is doing. Not only him, the entire Congolese people, they see that finally they will have hope. And President Tshisekedi also mentioned at the end of my interview that when peace finally comes to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, he's thinking to nominate you as a Nobel Prize Peace, because he said you deserve, you have been working to bring peace in the world, not only at the Congo, and he's very hopeful to meet you in the future.
That's so nice. Boy, and that's so beautifully stated. And Caroline said, number one, she did say, and I shouldn't say this because it's politically incorrect, she said, she's beautiful, and you are beautiful. I'm not allowed to say that, that could be the end of my political career, but I'll say it anyway. But you are beautiful, and you're beautiful inside. So I wish I had more reporters like you. You covered Africa for a long time?
Yes, for over 10 years.
Wow.
I covered even your first administration.
Yes, I know that. That's great. Well, thank you. That's so nice that you said
Thank
that.
you.
Appreciate it.
And I have one more question,
Yes.
Mr. President. Since we know in July or in the future, both President of Rwanda and the Congo will be coming
Yes.
to the United States. In Africa, President John Lorenzo, the president of Angola, he is also the leader of African Union.
Good.
He
Yes, I know.
worked very hard to bring peace, but unfortunately.
Let's get him here.
Yes, that's
Okay? Would you invite him for me?
Of course.
Okay?
Of
No,
course.
we'll have, I know that he works very hard, and he's the head of essentially the union. So the union all over Africa, not the kind of union that we have. This is the union all over Africa, and I'd love to have him, so you'll let him know.
Of course,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good.
Mr.
Now you go back to where you belong, right? That's great. That's a great job. It's real knowledge and real heart, too. Congratulations. Okay.
Okay, well, if you've watched that, you see this lady. She is a journalist, the only African journalist in the White House, as a White House correspondent. And this person could just potentially just continue to do her job and not really get involved in anything else. But she did, through her contact at the White House, trying to influence to some extent what is happening in the Congo, and she had the opportunity through the president. The president of the United States is the most powerful man in the world, and Trump is even more powerful because he actually wants power and he uses it sometimes, without a lot of regards to traditional. How do I put it? He's just unconventional. He uses his power in a very unconventional way, and this person, this reporter, utilized the opportunity she had to add a little bit of value to the whole thing that was being done at the White House, and trying to convince President Trump and everybody else who was attending. And through that, because of the whole reporting that is, obviously open to the whole world, trying to contribute and bring something positive into that whole conversation. And I think she impacted on President Trump's heart and determination to achieve peace in Africa. Now, I know as a Pan-Africanist that it is actually regrettable that in order for two African countries to achieve peace, they have to go to Washington, because for many years we've been saying as Pan-Africans that we ought to be able to take care of our own affairs. Self-determination is a pretty important concept that lies at the very heart of the notion of Pan-Africanism. So ultimately, for conflict that arise in the continent, it would be best that we actually resolve these issues in the continent through available African mechanisms. The African Union, many of the regional, organizations throughout Africa. But the Congo and Rwanda has been one conflict where we see the limitations and pretty much, or maybe I would call the weaknesses of Pan-Africanism in the African continent, first and foremost, because even though it is well documented and established that Rwandan government has sent its troops to the Congo, even though it's been denying for many, many years. However, just notice that Rwanda has signed peace agreement with the Congo. Now, if Rwanda officially says it's not in war with Congo and it doesn't have its troops in the Congo, and that the whole conflict with the so-called M23 is a Congolese affair, why is Rwanda signing a peace agreement if it's not involved? Anyway, it's the whole hypocrisy, and I don't want to, go too much into the whole political aspect of it, because that is well documented, and the UN has there's a UN resolution that I think is 2773, something of that type, that was recently issued, asking Rwanda to withdraw its troop from the DRC. Now, um, this conflict should have allowed existing African mechanisms through the EU and the regional bodies to be able to resolve this matter between Rwanda and Uganda, but it hasn't happened. And the sad part of it is that not almost no African president was able to openly call Rwanda to account and say, "Hey, you have your troops in another country, and you should withdraw your troops." It is well documented everywhere. But anyway, so that's just some of the failure, and the African Union has not been able to resolve the issue. Now, when you see all these conferences that happen all over the place in Africa and beyond, where we talk about resolving issues in Africa by Africans and for Africans' welfare, it's regrettable that this matter couldn't have been resolved. And what is even more regrettable is that one African countries actually attacks and invades another. Yes, there are some issues in terms of, the Rwanda has always claimed that there are groups of what they call the FDLR, former Hutu militia from the previous Habyarimana government back in the 1990s that threatens Rwandan security. Now, just for those who may not necessarily be very familiar with this whole thing, from 1994, when these the former Rwandan army crossed the border when Kagame was coming to power, and he had all these, soldiers from that army coming to Congo, and that these soldiers constitute what they call the FDLR. It's been 30 years, and since then, Rwanda had actually invaded and brought the president Laurent Kabila to power, and Rwanda actually occupied the DRC pretty much. The whole of the DRC army was run by James Kabarebe, who is a Rwandan general. They had, I think, for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years of time where they were running the whole show. So a Rwandan general who is the chief of staff, the army's chief of staff in the Congo. This is the only man that have had a chance to be army's chief of staff for two countries, Rwanda and Congo. Now they had all the means and opportunities to take care of these FDLR, whatever they call them, and then beyond that, there's been a number of times when the Congolese government officially invited the Rwandan government to come to the Congo and deal with together, trying to get this FDLR issue addressed. Now, from the Congolese government, there are not many of these elements anymore, because not only they have aged, it's been 30 years since they crossed the border. Not only they've aged, but Rwanda and even the Congolese government has had enough opportunity to try to address this matter, and many of them have either been returned or died. There may be some remnant, some elements here and there, but nothing that would actually constitute any threat to the Rwandan current regime in Kigali. But obviously, this is what Kigali has always been using to try to justify its action in the Congo. But a lot of specialists will tell you, experts in this matter who have looked into it very closely, it's not about the FDLR or whatever their name is. It's more about the resources in the Congo. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the conflict has been ongoing for 30 years. More than 6 million Congolese have died. And the continent of Africa has not been able to broker any peace agreement between Congo and Rwanda. Washington this time is on the verge of making that happen. At least on the paper, the signature have been applied, and the two countries agreed to work together to not only stop the war, but accelerate the economic collaboration within the region. And this lady, Haryana, I think is her name, that journalist for me, it's just a very good example of Pan-Africanism in action, where she uses the opportunity she has as a journalist within that ceremony that was taking place in the White House, the signing of the peace accord, to kind of reinforce the need for peace. She's not Congolese, but she has gone to the Congo. She's seen what the Congolese people are looking for, what they are hoping for. Obviously, as a journalist, she would have seen a lot of the reports about the depth and displacement of Congolese people. Because in this conflict, even though there are some Rwandans who have died, but it's like 1% out of the total number of people who have died. The majority, the 99%, has been in the Congo, and the Congolese have been suffering all along for the last 30 years, and it's not ending. Hopefully this time it ends, but it just gives me the opportunity to reinforce the fact that as Africans and Pan-Africanists, whenever we have an opportunity to bring peace or to contribute to the establishment of peace, to help not just individuals but countries to cooperate, collaborate, work together, and improve the well-being of the individuals, families, communities, and nations involved, we ought to be able to do so. So kudos to that lady, Haryana, as a good example of Pan-Africanism. And that is what we would like to see more of us doing. And before I finish, because I don't want to make this too long, is that in the diaspora, as we continue to obviously do things both on an individual and collective level, we ought to be able to remind ourselves of the need that we have to, add something of value for the betterment of the lives of Africans, whether that is in the diaspora and in the continent. And a lot of this in the diaspora will be about partnership and collaboration for social, organizations or business and entrepreneurship endeavors. We need to be able to do that. I have seen over the years that sometimes we talk more about unity, we talk more about collaboration, but we actually don't do it in action. Whenever you see another African seeking some support for a project or for a business, why don't you offer that? Because the more of the assistance you offer to people, that is like planting the seed that you will reap later, and that is helping the person who needs that help, helping you as well. Because when you do somebody a favor, you automatically include them into your social network, so to speak, your social capital, because they will not hesitate to be able to return that favor at some point if they can. And that is something very important. And I just want to remind the diaspora that we have a big job to try to contribute to the betterment of the African continent in many ways, as much as we do in our own communities where we live in diaspora settings. So let's get on to doing it rather than just talking about Pan-Africanism. So that is all for today. There will be a lot more subject that I will be discussing in this Clyde Sharadi show. Most will relate to the experiences of Africans in the diaspora, as well as some political and current issues, current affairs issues in the continent. I would like to suggest that if you have a chance to watch this video, please share it, like it, comment, and feel free to contribute to any topic that you would like to see discussed as we start this new campaign on the education and empowerment of Africans through media. One last thing before I leave is we are involved in entrepreneurship development in the African Australian context. I run the Afropreneur Summit Australia platform that is dedicated to empowering members of the African Australian communities in matters of entrepreneurship, both commercial and social. And we organize events throughout Australia and even internationally. We've started expanding this year internationally, namely with New Zealand and possibly with South Africa and Canada as well. We're still negotiating with partners over there to be able to do. But New Zealand is locked in. So we're inviting you wherever you may be, if entrepreneurship, business development, social and charity, community-related matters of interest, and you'd like to be able to obviously learn more, connect with new people, and build a support system around what you want to do in these spaces, we'll encourage you to register and attend the event and become a member of the platform. The next summit is happening in Adelaide on the 15th of August, and I'll leave a link where you can register. After Adelaide, we will have Perth on the 18th of October. Sydney will come on the 1st of November. We're still also trying to organize a date for Brisbane and Melbourne. All right, until next time, I hope that you remain safe and blessed in everything you do. Thank you very much.
African soil, his roots run deep. Oh, Clyde Shiretti, rise and lead, a force of change, a living creed. He wrote the tales of a people's plight, a voice of truth in the darkest night. With every page, he built a bridge to hope and strength on the highest ridge. No borders hold what love can weave.